Hey, welcome back, Scott Mingus, Neil McLeod. It's the much anticipated segment three of our three-part series. So in this series, we're gonna follow on. So we talked about how do you go through and determine exactly where you're at with AI and what are you going to automate or what are you going to look at to make sure that it fits within your business and your goals. The second piece is really going through how do I pick a tool? How do I pick a platform, understand the cost of it, not just today, but in the long term, and make sure that I have governance in place, etc. And now we're going to move into the actual how do I build this workflow? I mean, how do I deploy this tool and go through the process of making it work? So Neil, I'm gonna ask you to jump in. You'll probably do a little bit of screen share on this piece of it, but talk to us about the process, starting with kind of whiteboarding your process out and how do you put that all together?
The way I got started was literally just writing down the sequence of event. And we've done whiteboarding sessions where we've done sticky notes. Like I literally was thinking in step-by-step fashion, what happens? Here is the actual workflow process and what happens. What I want to do on a daily basis is get information personally from my calendar and my email. And so I have an entire workflow built for get data. I have a workflow for summarizing that data, synthesizing it, and then generating content out of it. So that's kind of what this flow does. Each of those modules has its own underlying workflow. My thought process was, okay, I'm going to go to my calendar and I'm going to go to my email independent of one another and pull events. So for my calendar, there's less events. And in my email, I'm actually going through a filter process. So I don't want to take all that noise and junk and spam and pull it in. And so this is basically filtering out a bunch of noise. So I'm pulling just the last 7 days and normalizing both before I put it into, in this case, a spreadsheet. And then I'm going to ask OpenAI to summarize the information. What are the most important points that are being made? And pulling that back out of a AI tool to give me what I might leverage downstream for creating marketing content, or it might be pushing content out into social media platforms, or shooting a note in Teams, or updating a database in HubSpot. So I won't go through every step by step, but generally it's like, okay, what do I want to have happen? And then what has to happen in order for that to function effectively.
So I'm gonna bring us back up a level. So if we start out and we look at that process, you've moved from the world of chat into an agentic environment, right? So you're building an agent, if you will, or a process with multiple agents. And let's call it, for lack of a better term, it's your marketing assistant. You've now hired a group of marketing assistants going out and scanning the market, doing all those things much faster and probably a little bit more thorough. So that's kind of where you're at. It's you've hired a group of marketing assistants to help you. The best part is, they're going to present you with their work every day and how you want to see it. Would that be a good high level description?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yep, and it's literally a learning process. You can map out in sticky notes or on a whiteboard exactly what you think it's going to look like, but until you get in there and start playing around with it, you're not going to know what good looks like. And for me, it was exactly like that. I just got started by prompting ChatGPT, hey, here is generally what I would like to accomplish. Then I used that prompt to get clearer and clearer on the process before I went into a workflow builder. I didn't want to start from scratch and just get hung up and get frustrated within a tool. I wanted to start with the strategy first, the thought process first, and then the tactical execution after that.
Yeah, excellent. So I that's a good segue into, we talk a lot about vibe coding versus actual engineering. I looked at that process. It was it's a beautiful workflow. You have all these little boxes with descriptors on them. How much code did you actually have to write to get that workflow process put together? Did you vibe code it? Did you have to learn a language? Did you have to use Python? Talk to us a little bit about the level of complexity of building that workflow.
I have never been an engineer. And so I always use tools that allow me as a fairly lay person to map out and execute a process. And so it was totally me working with generative AI to actually understand what it was that I wanted to execute. And then as I started to get into the actual tool and node by node build solutions, I was asking questions. It was saying, okay, do this, use this type of node, and execute the task just like this. And if I got in there and it wasn't working, I was using, call it vibe coding mechanisms just by typing in prompts saying, here's my error message, or here's what I'm seeing. And then it would actually work with me, step me through how to get each node and each workflow functional. And then I could move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it is a learning process. So let's kind of bring this to a close, because I think the one point that we haven't hit on that's incredibly important, that we spend a lot of time with our clients discussing, is human in the loop. You know, any of us that spend our days in AI and in social media and the news, you, even in your process, you have human in the loop. So talk about what's the philosophy of human in the loop across every industry and the different tools and applications. Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think about it personally from critical decision points. So I come from transportation and they talk about exception management. So when something goes wrong in the supply chain, what happens and who makes the choice about what the decision is to move forward? And in that case, you have to have expertise, subject matter expertise. I don't trust the content generation just yet, where I'm just going to say, okay, here's my prompt. It gives me a marketing ad copy for next week's social post. I still read the entire thing, look for things like M dashes, look for things like words like drift, and I actually layer in anecdotes and stories and real life experiences because I want people to understand that it's coming from a human. I don't think you can bypass that creative, instinctive component just yet. And there's people on the bleeding edge that do believe we're going to completely replace humans. We don't need them anymore of evolution of this technology. But my take is absolutely for the next 5 to 10 years, there is no way to bypass humans completely. I think humans are a crucial component from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, and there are industries where it's being regulated, that the human in the loop, in the legal industry, for instance, case law cited two judges that didn't exist, and those attorneys are in a lot of trouble. So I think the human in the loop, I agree with you very much. I think it's so important. Listen, I want to thank you for your time over these last three segments, and I want to say thank you to the folks that have followed along all three segments. Hopefully, you will follow us, like us, share us, and spread the word that Fractional Exec is doing some great work. So reach out to us if we can help you through this process. So for Neil and myself, thanks for tuning in, and look for our next videos. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.